Hello and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, send us questions and comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page. My name is John Ruark. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. I'll hand it off to Robert Johnson.
Hey guys, Robert Johnson here, the Worshipful Master of Waukegan Lodge number 78 in Waukegan, Illinois, and host of the Masonic podcast, Whence Came You?
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Juan Sepulveda.
Hello everybody, my name is Juan Sepulveda, and I am a member of Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in Kissimmee, Florida, and the host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast.
Thank you, Juan. Nick Johnson.
Hey, this is Nick Johnson, past master of Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time, Farmington.
Last but not least, Jason Richards.
Good evening, everybody. Jason Richards, Junior Warden of Acacia Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia.
All right. Got it in just in time this year, or this week. Not this year. Alrighty. Masonic News is light tonight. Nick, are you ready for MMQOT?
Let me bring that up, John.
And what is MMQOT?
That's a no.
MMQOT is Monday Masonic Question on Tuesday, John.
On Tuesday.
Dun dun dun.
Let me bring that up for you.
That needs some theme
All
music.
right.
And now you know the rest of the story.
And now you know the rest of the story. Anyway, wow, that was really a terrible one. All right, so here we go.
It's like your Scottish accent.
Yeah. Yes, what? No, I'm trying to think. Anyway, never mind. Yeah, I can't do it. Okay, now I'm back. The answer for the week of March 23rd, and this was a really tough question, so the three of you that got it, you are rock stars. You know it. All right, so this was about Écossais Masonry in the country of Ireland, and the questions were, what was the name of the first organized and chartered Écossais body in Ireland? From what country did it receive its original warrant? What year did it receive its warrant from Mother? And then your bonus question was, which modern Irish Masonic body also has the authority to confer a Rose Croix variant? And the answer was the Metropolitan or Dublin College of Heraldom. It received its original charter from France, and the mother in question is actually the Mother Council of the World, also known as the Supreme Council, ancient and accepted Scottish rite of the southern jurisdiction. And it conferred that warrant to the body of Dublin-based Masons in 1825. The bonus question was the Prince Masons under the Grand Chapter of Prince Masons of Ireland. And I'm sure there's some Scottish Rite guys like going nuts. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm not in it. Whatever, guys. But anyway, so the MMQOT for the week of March 30th, 2015 is, this Italian war hero, central to that country's okay, I'm just going to try my Italian. You ready, guys?
Uh-oh.
Risorgimento, got it, was also instrumental in joining these two Masonic rites into a single rite. Your question, who was this famous Freemason, and what two Masonic rites did he combine? When you have your answer, send it to masonicmonday@gmail.com. Don't forget to include your lodge name, lodge number, and the hashtag TMRMMQ or MMQTMR or some alphabet soup. Thank you very much, John.
And what will happen if they post it on the Facebook page?
Oh boy, well, you know, if they do decide to do something as horrifyingly rash as posting that on the Facebook page. The Mandarin will, in fact, defeat Tony Stark, also known as the Iron Man, and will then be able to use all 5 rings to defeat and take over the entire world. Do not let the Mandarin get all 5 rings. Got it, guys?
Are those like the rings from Captain Planet?
That hurts me. My God, no.
We're just breaking all sorts of canon here.
Oh man, I almost fell off my chair. Luckily, it's a couch, and it's a fainting couch, so it would be okay. But yes,
Alrighty.
you do know the 5 rings, right?
Yes.
Oh man, yes, thank you. Oh man, I almost died here.
It's like
It's
me
okay.
mentioning Donatello in the last episode. Alrighty.
Spoilers. Hey, we're talking about
Yeah.
death tonight. That's a fun subject,
Hey,
right?
spoiler alert.
Donatello died.
Yes.
Uh,
Let's talk about death. Let's talk about the Masonic funeral services. Last week we talked about some of the benefits of joining Masonry. We talked about more of the intangible benefits. One of the tangible benefits that you can receive, although you might not be there to enjoy it, is the act of a Masonic funeral service, or Masonic graveside service, Masonic burial service, however your jurisdiction allows it. And one of the nice things about this is that it is one of the few, at least in Virginia, public ceremonies that we can do as Masons that has a ritual assigned to it that has to be done with decorum and is out in the public. And so this is one of the few things that we do openly. It does have the same solemnity and respect of the things we do inside the lodge, probably more so because it's for the passing of our brother. So the first question I had for everyone here is, who has been to Masonic funeral service, at least within your jurisdiction or thereabouts? Say Jason has. Nick has. Robert has. Hey, Juan, why isn't your hand raised?
I haven't.
You haven't.
No, I have not.
All
Way
right.
to call a brother out, John. Seriously.
Wow. So, have you not had the opportunity, or?
I have not had the opportunity to go to one. Usually, they coincide with Saturday, and I have other commitments at the time.
All right. So, unfortunately, it's not because no one's been passing, right? It's just that the timing hasn't worked out.
Especially not in Florida.
Yeah, true. So, for those who have attended it, fill Juan in on what's the service like in general. I mean, is it like a church service? Is it, why a funeral service? What's that all about?
My experience, the first one I got to go to was actually my mentors, and it was a really weird thing to witness. I didn't understand quite what it was the first time I had ever seen it, because the first time I had seen it, I wasn't profane. At some point, we saw a Masonic service, and said, "Oh, what is that?" Right? The first one I ever saw was after I was a member, and it was my mentor, and it was just very different. What I had expected was that there would be a Masonic service, maybe just like a 5-10 minute thing that happened after the denominational service. So whether it was a Catholic service or whatever it was going to be, and then here comes the Masonic service. But in every instance of a Masonic service I've been to, it's literally everybody who comes to the service. It's like a regular funeral home. It's just everybody who's normally there, plus a ton of brothers show up. And there's people, there's a master, the secretary, chaplain, and a marshal, I believe. And they all stand up in the front, and they go through a public ceremony, which is beautiful. And that's the only ceremony there is. Like, when they're done, and we're done doing our thing, like the service is over. And it's really all-encompassing, and it's probably more special, and it seems more. I don't have the words for it, but it's just really, really special service, and the public is usually awed by it. It's really interesting.
Nick, how are things out your way?
Sure. Ours actually is found in the Masonic manual, but it's not cut and dry. This is the ritual that you need to follow. So there's a little bit of variance. And for my lodge, we actually have a brother who is the usual, funeral guy. He's the guy who, whenever the call comes out, he is usually doing the service. But what he usually does is he asks, the master or somebody like that to jump in and help out with parts of the service. But for me, yeah, it's a very solemn, it's a very fitting way in which we honor our past brothers. And so, for me, I've always tried to find ways to be able to, especially for brothers that pass in my lodge, whose families requested, I make a special note to actually go out there and actually attend those funerals. So.
Mm-hmm. Juan, is it the funeral service written down in any books for how it's supposed to be done in Florida?
Yes, in Florida we also have a memorial lodge. So there are officers that belong to this lodge, and just like the positions you have in a regular lodge, you have brothers that are members of this lodge. Excuse me, all the way up to a worshipful master. So we have past masters of Memorial Lodge, and they do meet. They belong to their own respective lodges, but they also meet together to practice the Masonic funerals. And usually, once you join that Memorial Lodge, you go through the paces of learning the ritual, the ceremony itself, and I have read some of it. I haven't read all of it, but I know Brother Victor has. We talked before about him going to a Masonic funeral, and he was very moved. And the impression it causes on Masons and non-Masons alike is something it shows a great representation of what Masonry is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of those additional places or interactions with society that show people a glimpse to what Freemasonry is all about.
Mm-hmm. Jason, how about in Virginia?
Well, in Virginia, it's interesting because I've heard of it being done two ways, where you can either have the Masonic funeral service like right after the religious service, but then I've also heard that, or that's the part that I've seen. But I've also heard that you can do the Masonic funeral service at the grave site, which I think is something that is really, really neat, because part of the service is paying homage to the coffin that's going to carry the departed brother, his remains for the rest of eternity, or what have you. But I mean, just things like sprinkling dirt over it, and I think at the gravesite especially, that's just such a powerful image that I think sticks with a whole lot of people. Having only been to one Masonic funeral, I don't have the ritual memorized or anything, but it did strike me as just something incredibly personal and incredibly powerful. And I don't have much else to say about it.
So actually, I got a funny anecdote to jump off from here. So as I was in the process of becoming a Mason, I was talking to my brother-in-law and said that, hey, I'm thinking about joining a Mason. And my brother-in-law had served in the military, had done lots of things at, say, Arlington National Cemetery, and had said, hey, when you join, you got to tell me what a Masonic funeral is like. I was like, well, why is that? He said, well, I've never been privy to Masonic funerals where a serviceman may also be a Mason and they have their own private ceremony. And I've never really been able to go to see those things. And I heard this is totally true. Someone told me that that when you go to a Masonic funeral, they cut off your ring finger where your Masonic ring is, because once a Mason, always a Mason.
Wow.
So here okay, I'll let you know. So
Yeah.
let me confirm that does not happen. That says Nick with a missing finger.
Well, one of my first kind of introductions to Masonry was from my mom. My grandfather was a Mason, but I didn't know him very well, and he lived in Ohio. I was down in Virginia, and we just never talked whatsoever. And when he passed away, my mom ended up going up to the funeral. I wasn't able to go for whatever reason. I was just a kid. And she came back, and she's like, those Freemasons do some really weird things. She recounted tales of, people lining up in front of the coffin and chanting and shaking palm branches over, probably acacia, branches over the coffin, and it just struck her as the weirdest thing in the world. And it struck me as the weirdest thing in the world as well. So imagine my surprise when going to a Masonic funeral service in Virginia. And it's like, no, this is a very profound, very deep, very non-squirrely ceremony. So I'm not sure what exactly she saw or what she experienced. I don't even know if it was actually a true Masonic funeral. He joined all these organizations, so it might have been somebody else.
OTO.
But yeah. But so, after hearing what my brother-in-law said, right, and then not seeing one, I know that's one of the benefits that a Master Mason can get at a Masonic funeral service. I was like, I don't know, what I'm getting into if I don't see one first. And so I did, unfortunately, have the chance to go see a brother's service. And yes, I too found it to be very respectful. As with most things with Masonry, religious, but not part of a religion. And so it definitely had those spiritual aspects to it, and very respectful. And so one thing I wanted to add too is that it is in our monitor about how it should be performed, and there are so many variables, more than just the ones we talked about what to do if it's just a memorial service, what to do if there are ashes, what to do if it's at the funeral home, what to do if it's at the graveside, when to do things, how to line up. So it's very prescriptive in Virginia of the order of things, people, places, where to stand, what to do, and so it goes on for multiple different options. So that's good, I think, because it covers the gambit that if a brother was cremated, you now have an alternative method that still pays respect to the body in that form. So
Sure. So one of the things I was going to mention is that I've been to Masonic funerals here in Illinois and then also in Wisconsin, where so we have a difference. Wisconsin is F and AM, and in Illinois it's AF and AM. Excuse me. And in Wisconsin, it was very loose, as in still very, very profound of a service. The master of the lodge, he was reading a script, but it wasn't so much of a script as it was a dialogue for a service, kind of like a typical minister would do, or a deacon, or whoever is presiding over a religious type of service. In Illinois, it has always just been the five guys at the front, and one of the things we actually covered just about a year ago, actually, there was a lot of question whether or not the master at a funeral wears his hat, and they finally put an edict out and said, no, the master is not
here. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't wear the hat, right? So you guys were talking about some of the customs. It reminded me of I was writing a paper, just a quick little blurb about the Tyler a long time ago, and one of the interesting things I found was in Mackey's Masonic Encyclopedia, I believe it talks about it under either the Tyler sword entry or the Tyler. You'll have to check it out, guys. It's pretty interesting. But at a graveside service, like Jason mentioned, I believe it's the late 1800s, an old Tyler passed, and the account is that once the coffin was lowered in, the master finished the ritual, pulled the Tyler sword out of the ground, broke it over his knee, and threw it into the coffin.
Mm.
It was really kind of an interesting thing, because I guess that's the sword that he throughout his time in his office. It's Tyler.
That sounds painful.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, breaking a sword over your knee has to hurt.
Well, John, I wanted to get back to something you had said a little while ago, talking about the religious aspect of the service while not being a religion in itself. As we know, Freemasonry is not. I think it's only fitting to end your life as a member of a fraternity whose membership is predicated on belief in a creator, to ultimately have the funeral celebrating your life as a member of that fraternity, to pay homage to, the ultimate homage to the creator who gave you life, and then, allowed it to be taken away from you. And that just kind of brings Freemasonry full circle for me, where we are, a brotherhood of men who all believe in God, who is the creator of all things, and it's just the ultimate way of paying respect to God for a life well lived.
Yeah, that also brings a point to mind. We know it's not a religion, and we have our own ways of looking at Freemasonry, but not everybody that are members of the family might be as clear as to what Freemasonry is or isn't. And sometimes the religious leaders of that brother's respective religion might not be very open to what Freemasonry is. So one thing that's prescribed is that if there is to be a Masonic funeral conferred on or presented in honor of a brother, that the worshipful master, or in our case the worshipful master of the Memorial Lodge, would try to get in contact with the minister or religious leader of that individual's religion to make sure that everything is in order. The last thing you want is for the memory of that person to be dishonored by some rift between two people in the funeral. So different jurisdictions I know would provide steps or guidelines as to how to actually contact and explain and deal with them, so that it's as solemn a moment as possible when it's performed.
Well, and for me, just as a personal story, there was a past master. Essentially, he was the master of my lodge that got me into the junior warden spot. He bumped me up, and he had just retired, and he and I were pretty close, and he knew my wife too as well, and so we knew each other from outside of Masonry. So right when he retired, he contracted cancer, and it was one of those stage 4, really virulent ones, and he passed very quickly. And so for me, it was one of those that the funeral service, it was tough. It was extremely tough, because I knew him. He was not just well liked. I mean, everybody says you're well liked, but for him, I mean, he was my mentor essentially, and it got real fast. And that's the interesting thing that I found when I was involved in that funeral, was because he was also very, very big in OES, and they have their own way of doing funeral rites of some kind, and then he also had the Masonic service as well. And for me, it helped to develop some kind of closure, because I mean, it was one of those that the cancer was fast, and it was extremely tough on all of us. And so you know, for us it was like this coming together of, you know, I mean, I think we had 100 Masons plus, you know, 50 or so OES members, maybe even more than that, all in this small funeral home, and it was very powerful and very profound. And I think his friends and his family, you know, they saw us all on our black aprons. We had used up every single black apron that we had in the box because he had so many people there. And you could tell that the family and the friends, they could, you know, it was kind of a weird ceremony for them to watch, but they could see the dedication that we all had to preserving his memory. And so I think that's the biggest thing that a funeral can do for our brothers, is to,
you bring up a good
for a
point.
moment, remember them.
You bring up a good point. It's been my experience, the ones that I've attended, whether they be you know, very popular Masons or not, is that the turnout, at least among the brothers, have been very well attended, and I think that alone shows two things: shows a respect to the departed brother, but also shows the commitment and dedication and support that we have to this fraternity. That you know, we'll be there to the brother's end, and that, you know, it's just something that you know, the family members will also appreciate, that, you know, that this fraternity not only means so much to the departed brother, but to the other brothers, to take the time and effort to pay their last respects.
And it also gives the family that feeling of support, that we're there for them even after his passing. We're there for the widows. We're there for his orphans, and it was very, very meaningful, and it did help with a lot of the closure issues, you know, when you're dealing with grief.
Nick, here's a question for you. Do you think, like, when the Masonic funerals I've been to, I've been to Masonic funerals where it was like 10 of us,
Mm-hmm.
and I've also been to Masonic funerals where there was 300. Now, do you ever think that maybe a Mason's family doesn't entirely get it, but he's, you know, huge in the fraternity, and then when they see all these bros show up to the funeral, like, they start seeing us trickle in, and they go, oh, that's nice, and then boom, there's more, and they go, oh, wow, and then pretty soon there's more of us than there are of them, and then all of a sudden, like you said, it gets real. Like, at that point, for the first time ever, they realize, I guess this isn't just a men's club.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think that's just incredible to watch that, like, revelation happen, you know, in those services.
Well, and that's the thing, is even active Masons who, I mean, his wife was very involved in Star, you know, the rest of his family and everyone else and all of his friends, they had no idea about this other side of his life. And, you know, when I finally visited my grandpa's lodge down in Austin, it was kind of interesting, is that I was chatting with all of those Masons down there, and all of them were coming up to me saying, why didn't your grandpa want a Masonic service? And you know, I'm sitting there going, I don't know why, but, you know, and they were actually a little bit distraught that they weren't able to do that for him.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting just how, you know, how you know, it's like this idea of the funeral permeates into what we feel this duty that we need to do this. And so just like what you're talking about, where it, you know, trickles in a little bit and then a little bit more and then a little bit more, and the family's like, whoa, you know, and that's, it feels like a duty, you know, for me at least, when I'm going to a funeral.
So you mentioned,
and a good duty, like something that I want to do.
You mentioned this other thing that, like, immediately as you said it, I said, wait, what? Black aprons.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
One of us was going to come
you guys
back
don't
to
have
it.
those?
So,
No.
we're all for white aprons.
Oh, you don't have the black line memorial aprons?
No.
No, we do
let me
gloves
find it.
too, but
Yeah.
And we have armbands too. We have these armbands that go up here, and then we have black lined aprons that we use for memorial services. Let me get a picture. And You all chat amongst yourselves. Wow.
So actually, I think that might be a good segue into some of the questions on social media, because we've had some questions about is regalia worn and the like. So I'll let Jason kind of start digging through that to see what some of the differences are across the jurisdictions.
Well, first off, we had the question that John referenced from Adam Thayer, one of our Midnight Freemason compatriots, who was actually asking, for those who have a public ceremony, especially graveside, do the officers wear their regalia? They do in Nebraska unless otherwise requested by the family, especially if the brother is buried in his apron. What do you all think?
In Virginia, the officers of that lodge that's holding the service, or their pro tem officers, do wear the jewels of their office. All Master Masons that are there must also wear a Masonic apron, and so it doesn't really say, purely white, but I guess people can wear other Masonic aprons that they have, but there is no black lined apron. Right.
Here we go. This is what we have. So this is what we use in all of our. That's not working?
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so this is what we wear, and everybody wears the same. Nobody's wearing an officer's apron or anything like that. We wear a band that goes on our right arms, and what we do is we process in, and usually we're going up in front of the casket, and all of us, put our hold our hand over the coffin and say whatever is in our heart that we want to say to the deceased brother, and then we, on his ashes or his coffin, and then we all file into our seats, and then usually the master of that particular funeral will start with the service that way. So that's kind of how Minnesota does it. And a lot of lodges will just borrow our aprons, I've noticed, and stuff like that. And up here it's very common to use the black lined aprons. So
you didn't answer about the regalia though. Do the officers wear their regalia?
Nope, everybody's wearing the exact same.
Uniformity. All right. How about
uniformity
over your way, Robert?
So here in Illinois, the regalia for the officers performing the ceremony are just the typical. They are the officers' regalia, not of the lodge. It's just like a master's jewel, right? It would be whoever the master is, because it's not always the master of that lodge is not always the one doing the funeral service. So we have like a bunch of brothers in the district, per se, who all know their parts in the ritual, and they will wear the regalia of whatever their title is. So if the title in the ritual is the master or the secretary or the chaplain, they wear the appropriate things for that. All the other brothers will wear, I don't think there is something that says it has to be a white apron, but it's all I've ever seen. Is a white apron, white gloves, and outside that, no hat for the master or anybody else.
Right.
And
that's same in Virginia.
Yep.
All right. What else, Jason?
Well, interestingly enough, Brother Robert Hurd is listening in tonight, and he says they have Masonic memorial lodges in Colorado that are specifically chartered to perform Masonic funeral services for the brethren. And I was just wondering if anybody else here knew of any lodges that were specifically chartered as a function to perform Masonic funeral services, because that's new for me in Virginia.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, we don't have that in Virginia either, but I could see the benefit of that, because it is left up to the individual lodges to have either the marshal or someone on behalf of the marshal of that lodge to perform the funeral service. So you're going to get a mixed bag, right, depending on who the marshal is and their skill level and ability. And I'm not saying it's going to be performed poorly, but at least those who have taken the extra time to learn the ritual and memorize it, it's a good thing. You can tell it shows, right? So in Colorado, it sounds to me that they have people whose sole purpose in life is to know that ritual backwards and forwards, and so it really gives it the respect it deserves. So for that, I think it's a good idea.
In
That's how
Minnesota.
it is in Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I
Minnesota-
was mentioning.
Oh, sorry, I keep stepping on you. But in Minnesota, we could have memorial lodges. We just don't have them. It's in the code. So sorry about that one.
No, no problem.
I mean, I understand the importance of getting the ritual right, but at the same time, for me, the personal aspect of the funeral service, I feel trumps, getting every single word right. So personally, I would prefer the brethren of my lodge
To know you.
Yeah, well, if they're able, I understand. A brother is a brother is a brother, but those brethren I've sat in lodge with, for the past 30 years, I would want those brethren being the ones who would be speaking up at my funeral.
Yeah.
But again, that's personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But one thing to consider there too is like not everybody has that ability to speak in public, especially if it's a prescribed ritual that might be complex, and if it's using some complex Old English. If you have a specific set of brothers, like the members of the Memorial Lodge, they have practiced it enough that then when they perform it, they can do so with emotion. And just like I'm sure all of you have memorized degree work, and at first it's super choppy when you recite it, but eventually you're able to be more comfortable in the language and inject a little bit more emotion and sentiment.
So, like here in many places they set up all across Illinois anyway. We in our district have a group of brothers who every other Tuesday put together the Masonic service, funeral service school, 7 to 8 o'clock every other Tuesday, and they just go there. They meet for an hour, perfect it. They even film it, and then watch it and critique themselves, and they go back. And it's really paid off because these guys have it tight, and it really means a whole lot. It's not exactly, I guess, like a Masonic, lodge that's chartered just for funerals, obviously, but functions somewhat the same, I guess.
Well, and one thing that we haven't mentioned, except I kind of did it in passing, is that the OES has their funeral service, but so does the Knights Templar. And I don't know if you've ever seen casket guards at these different funerals you've been to, but in the commandery there is in fact a funeral service there as well, and I've been slowly piecing it together since I'll probably likely be commander elected next month. So I'm starting to warm that up too, but luckily I think there's a group that's starting up that's going to be kind of a drill team here that is going to be learning the funeral rites for that. So actually it's kind of interesting. A lot of different Masonic bodies, not just the Blue Lodge, have funeral services, and I think that's kind of an amazing thing that it is. It's almost like it is this glue that we want to honor these memories in all of the work that they've done in every aspect. And so I encourage everybody to read not just the Masonic funeral services that are in their state, but also the funeral services for all the different independent bodies that they're in as well.
Jason, what have you got there?
Well, what I've got here is a picture from our buddy Ken Lotman in Texas, who said that actually most all of the Masonic funerals conducted in Texas are at the graveside, and for his particular lodge, Ken gives each widow a copy of the Bible and also what's pictured here, which is a Masonic widow's pin.
Yep.
And that's really interesting because I've never actually seen a pin for a Masonic widow before. Is this new to you guys as well?
No. Yeah.
We
them out.
we give those out here in Illinois, and then it was kind of weird because the first time I saw one, I kind of felt like, man, I'm not supposed to see this ever. And I should never see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Yeah, we don't do that in Virginia.
Virginia is a bit behind the eight ball. with that one.
Because you're spending so much time talking to each other with this melting ear stuff.
Oh. Yeah. We don't want to write anything down.
Put it all on YouTube.
Oh.
So, dovetailing into, a little, where would an episode of TMR be without our discussion of our favorite state, Pennsylvania, and their ritual? We've got our buddy Richard Ingham, who said they actually have a multitude of different services they can perform. They can perform services at a funeral home, gravesite. They have different services for open and closed caskets. They have a memorial service if there are no remains there. They also have a lodge service that comes before the service at a funeral home. So, we think it's rough enough just having one that you need to memorize. Pennsylvania apparently has like 20 million of them.
Holy hell. Yeah, so once a year, some lodges out here will do a mass service for brothers who have passed away that weren't in the area. And it'll be almost similar to, I guess, what you would call the Scottish Rite Feast of a Paschal Lamb, where all the names of the brothers who have passed in the year are read and then memorialized that way, which is kind of interesting. And if you've never been to a Scottish Rite Feast of Paschal Lamb, that also is open to the public for the most part, and pretty interesting.
Well, interestingly enough, Richard also said that Pennsylvania lodges are required to exemplify the Masonic funeral service once a year. So that makes sure that ensures that all the officers are actually up on their funeral service ritual each year.
Wow. Talking about Texas, also on Twitter, David Weatherby, also a Texas Mason, does concur with the Masonic graveside services. But an interesting point that he brought up was that, unfortunately, in 2013, Texas lost over 6,000 brothers and almost 3,500 in 2014. So that's a lot of Masonic funeral services going on that year.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about the decline in membership and all that, but the important thing for this episode is, I mean, again, you're going to do that ritual a lot, and so we want to make sure that at least it's done to the best of our ability and with full respect.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a lot.
That's a lot to take in, especially on a live show.
Yeah.
So, and Scott Sherman has been commenting.
Kill the move.
I know. Scott Sherman has been commenting throughout the episode, and while we've seen cases where you have hundreds of brethren show up for a funeral, sometimes the opposite is just true. In Scott's case, where he's seen that when a brother's passes away who wasn't active, later on in life, they're not able to get more than a dozen brothers together to perform a service.
Yeah.
And that's hard, I understand, but it's...
There's that double-edged sword, right? Like, I feel I'll be the jerk here and just say kind of what everybody's thinking, which is if you weren't active, people aren't going to remember you.
And people aren't going to know you, and in a lot of cases, people aren't even going to know that you passed away, because it's kind of incumbent upon the secretary to read through the obituaries or to have a widow or orphan call the lodge, especially if the brothers moved away. You can talk now, John.
So I'm going to go and show a different opinion. When I was younger and had more free time, I did go to at least one Masonic funeral service of a brother I had never met. Also, I think one of those times was for courtesy work that our lodge did for a brother who was, a Mason in another state, had lived in our state, and then had passed on. And so, I felt it was kind of my duty at that time to pay respect when people that he may have known back in his home state can't.
But see, that's the deal, right? It comes down to there is this thing where there's this activity level. I've also been to funerals where I don't know the guy. I never knew the brother, other than it was either courtesy work or something there. But the thing is that I'm active, and so I feel I need to go.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? And it's the same with you guys. So if we're active, we go. It's just one of those weird things. We've all. I don't know if you guys have ever been to. It's very awkward when you show up to a Masonic funeral service and there's like 4 guys there. They're missing one of the people they need at the front, and they're like, you've at least been to a few of these. Just repeat what you know, and then look at the book if you have to."
Mm-hmm.
You're like, ugh. Okay.
Yeah.
And you feel awful because I don't want to read out of the book. I want to do this.
Yes.
And give them everything I can.
So that actually was one question that came up on social media as well. Is how do you guys feel about it being read versus memorized? I think with most things in Masonry, I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
Memorization is classy.
Especially that should be done, in my opinion only, 100% memorized, not read at all.
I agree.
I think it shouldn't. I think it shouldn't be as ritualistic as we make it. That's my opinion. I think it's one of those that each one should be tailor-made to the brother, and so I think it's one of those that you should just, because like in Minnesota, it's a suggested program, and so I don't know why I'm putting that in quotations.
Today I learned Nick Johnson doesn't care about ritual. Got it. All right.
Yep.
So I actually do have something kind of funny that will kind of lighten the mood here. A different topic. I know I didn't give everyone a chance to answer, but I wanted to bring this up while I thought of it. In Virginia, one of the things that we do is we have the oldest member of the lodge, as part of the ceremony, walk in with the Bible. And I find that kind of weirdly funny. It's maybe kind of morbid, because it's kind of like you go to a wedding and the bride tosses the flowers and like, oh, I'm the next one to get married, and so it's the guy who's, I'm the next one.
I'll see you soon.
I get it, but it just seems kind of
morbid,
weird. Yeah,
John Ruark, you are a horrible person.
Someone's next.
Man, is this like the Ring? The Masonic Ring.
If you've thought about it, I'm sure there's a lot of other brothers that have thought about it too.
Yeah.
There's that implied, or you discern a symbolism, even if it's not there. You're gonna attribute that.
I think that was in the Simpsons episode once too.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, man.
Well, going back to your question about memorized or read, in our Masonic etiquette book, the brother is encouraged to practice well and commit their parts to memory. And the reasoning behind it is that you want it to be the best presentation that you can give, and you don't want to stumble over your words in a moment where people are in mourning and they are. It's a very serious moment. You don't want to be, just tripping all over your words when performing a funeral. So it's encouraged that everybody commits their parts to memory.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Jason, anything else you want to wrap up with?
Yes. We got one last thing from Brother Robert Hurd. It's a picture from the archives of the Grand Lodge of New York, where these members are actually doing a Masonic funeral outside. And I don't have any more information on the picture, but it's from Livingstone's magazine, which is a great magazine. If you all aren't subscribed to it, you need to, because it's awesome. And it's just a little imagery to go with, to kind of round out the night on a topic that's probably one of the bigger downers of the Masonic Roundtable, outside of perhaps a youth groups episode.
I had fun.
All right.
But that's about all we got, John.
It's amazing that we didn't know how much we could talk about this, but it sounds like, as with most things in Masonry, jurisdictional differences do cover the gambit, and I think although religious wars have been fought on whose ritual is better, I think in this case, we do see a lot of the harmony being brought for the solemnity of that. So let's start going around the horn and wrapping up. Jason.
Final thoughts. At this point, the Masonic funeral service, at first I was kind of skeptical of it, to the point where, when I was raised, I was like, I really don't think I want one. I just didn't know what it entailed. I had been kind of skeezed out by my mom's probably not terribly accurate portrayal of what she saw at my grandfather's funeral.
Watching the show.
If she is, I'll hear about it tomorrow.
Hi, Mom.
That's fine. She's like, "Oh, are you doing your Mason stuff show more?" Like, yes, every Tuesday night. You should still watch. But having gone to a Masonic funeral, especially in Virginia, and seeing how beautiful the ritual is, after I went to that Masonic funeral, I actually changed my mind, and a Masonic funeral is now actually something that I actively want, in addition to the Christian celebration of life. But it's one of the rewards of being a Master Mason. It's something that tangible that you get, and it's something beautiful, and it's honoring you, the fraternity, and it's, if nothing else, it is a deeply personal outward display of support to your family that's left behind. And I think in a lot of ways the Masonic funeral is more for the family left behind than it is for the departed brother. And just keep that in mind if you ever get the chance to go to a Masonic funeral. If someone needs your help, this is a very tangible way that you can live out your obligation to support Masonic widows and orphans. And think of it that way, and just try to pay homage where homage is due.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. Moving along to Juan Sepulveda.
Well, this is one of the many Masonic experiences that I haven't had. However, I had an opportunity to read about it and understand its importance. It's only a matter of time before I can attend and participate in a Masonic funeral. From the very beginning of me joining the fraternity, I became aware of the Memorial Lodge, and it was something that I thought was very honorable. This is a lodge that its purpose is to actually pay respect to the brothers, and like you said, offer the support to the family of the deceased. So it's only a matter of time before I get involved. There's a lot of lessons in it that I think affect everybody that can witness it. We put a lot of importance in the finality or the scarcity of time, and here is a very sobering reminder of that. That brother might have sat in lodge with you, and now he's put down his working tools. So I look forward to reporting back after I go to my first Masonic funeral.
Hopefully not yours.
Exactly. I wouldn't be reporting back.
Or would you? And hopefully not anytime soon.
That's right.
You don't want to wish that on somebody. Be like, I hope you get to see a Masonic funeral really soon.
Really want to see a funeral service. All right, Nick Johnson.
All right. For me, I'm going to kind of give a little bit of advice. So sit on down, kids. I'm going to give you a little advice. Now, with a funeral, you got to remember that when you're dead, you can't tell your family what you want. So I would put down something in writing. The Grand Lodge of Minnesota actually has a really nice form that you can fill out that you can then, put in the documents that will be used during your when your family is having to plan out funerals and things like that, funeral things, and figuring out everything else with your estate. So yeah, I would seriously look at this request form that's at the Grand Lodge of Minnesota's website, or even just create your own, telling your family what you would like, with what you would like to be done. And obviously, I mean, again, you're not going to have any control of it. So if your family doesn't want to do that, that's yeah, seriously, write it down so that somebody knows, because I think 99% of it, the reason why we, will only get like 5 or 6 brothers is not because we don't know the brother, but because the family really doesn't. I mean, they're already in a state of grief; they don't really know anything. So, and they don't have some kind of notice of what they need, what was desired of them, with your relation to the fraternity. So make sure that you at least let them know what you want. So thanks.
Yeah, one of the good things to do also is to put it in your will. If you're ever at the point where you need to like update your will because of the birth of a child or something like that, it's easy just to stick that in there and say, I want a Masonic funeral, and that's an indelible legal way that you can make that known.
Good idea. Okay, Robert Johnson.
Well, just that to echo exactly what Nick said, in Illinois we do have a form also. It says make your wishes known. And I carry those around in my briefcase all the time because people don't ever see them. They don't think about it. It's just like a will. Nobody ever makes a will, right? It's a thing that we do to be responsible. Make your wishes known for sure. One thing that is interesting that a lot of guys don't think about, and they want to get involved. If you want to get involved, one of the most difficult things is presiding over one of these services when you know the guy who's behind you. And it's the most impressive thing in the world to watch these guys keep it together. And then you'll see families just bust up because they see the master performing the ritual and he stops because voice cracks and he's losing it. And then they stop for a minute. They gather composure and they continue. And, one service I witnessed when they were all done, the widow said, I miss him so much. And the master said, we miss our brother too. And, dude, there was not, a dry eye on either side, Masons who didn't even know the guy. It was so powerful. And just remember, if that's something you want, you have to ask for it.
Yeah.
So, that's it. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, Robert. So, I'll just echo what everyone else says. If you haven't seen one, go see one. Go help out. Go pay your respect to any brother who needs that, or at least their family at that time. Tell your family. In our case in Virginia, tell your family where your Masonic apron is, so that can be provided as part of the Masonic funeral service. And one thing I just wanted to add to bring it up on a high note, this is Passover week and Easter week, so for those of you celebrating those holidays, I hope you have a happy and redemptive Passover and Easter. On that, thank you very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Till next time.